Hey guys, it is Corinne, and you are watching episode number 4 of the VIP Collective. Today we are sitting down with Rebecca Chan of Rebecca Chan Events to talk all things planning, so let's go. Welcome. So thank you for coming out.
Happy to.
And just to give everybody like a bit of background, so this is Rebecca Chan, everybody, and you are, let's say, are you lead designer? Do you call yourself creative
lead
director?
Planner, owner, boss lady, something like that.
Cool. And so let's hear some background. So I know you're like 10 years now in business. Mm-hmm. So how did it begin? Take us back.
So in university, I did graphic design, actually. Cool. So I went in, actually before that I wanted to be in interior design, and I was like, oh, it needs math. I don't want to do math. Let's do graphic design. Similar, I enjoyed it. Creative. I got into it halfway. It was a great program in the city, and got through halfway, and I realized this isn't really what I want to do. And then I was like, what do I do with myself after my 4 years is done? And I found this great event design program in the city and decided to jump on board because I'd always done events. And, you know, my sister's birthday party, my birthday parties, I've always been epic, big gatherings. I've always enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. So I decided to take that risk, jump on board, see what it's like, and it was fun. It connected me with some great nonprofit organizations and started a nonprofit.
Cool.
So that was the start. I started in event management, and my friends started getting married. You know, we're all in their 20s. Yep. And, 10 years ago, wedding planning wasn't a huge thing, right? So it was, I think I need someone to plan my wedding, maybe, or at least someone on the day of. Rebecca does events, she can do mine. So that's how I started. And, I had a few of my friends who asked me for help, and I said, can I charge you for it? Side gig, maybe. They're like, yeah, why don't we do that? Let's build a portfolio, right? So that's how it started.
So kind of off friends' weddings.
Just really out of necessity.
And then you obviously realized that you loved it. Maybe you loved the design part of it, do you think?
It was a process. So it started out of necessity, out of it being something I could do, that I enjoyed doing, and it translated to weddings. And then, it snowballed, honestly. Like, wedding planning 10 years ago was like, people didn't have social media, they didn't have Pinterest, it was like print magazines only, yes. And it wasn't this big production. So over the years, it became a big production. And with my design background, it was a good blend. Mm-hmm. And I started doing more of the design versus just coordinating and getting the work done.
Right. Then when did you start doing that then? Out of university? It would have been like 15 years ago, maybe?
About 2000. I guess I started events in the nonprofit sector around 2007. Mm-hmm. And then 12 years ago.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah, 12 years.
It was so fast.
And then in and around, midway through I got married too, and,
Do you have kids too?
No kids. Just a little fur baby.
Aw, yeah. Cute. What's his name? Or her?
Casey.
How cute. Yeah. So you started obviously doing events. So the graphic design thing, did it translate into what you do? In a way?
It did, absolutely. So in graphic design, it was like this small program with like 100 people, really hard to get in. It was very strenuous. Also probably why I didn't want to do it anymore. But, every design project we had, it involved a client. Mm-hmm. There was a pitch. They give you a scope, like this is not the budget, but like this is what they need to achieve. This is what the goal is. This is what, these are the ingredients you have to work with. And then you would have to present your idea. You'd pitch the idea. You'd have to create a board. Not only do you have to create your idea, you would have to create. I'd be in late night at home with my X-Acto knife, my ruler. I'd be like creating these boards physically, with a presentation board with this like tissue paper on top, with another blank page on top. Because when you have clients, you need to show it. It was a very tactile presentation back then.
Yeah.
I don't even know if graphic designers do this anymore, but back then they wanted us to really know how to do the nitty gritty, right? Mm-hmm. So that was what we had to do. So definitely that translated. And on the side, I had freelance design business as well. So I had clients, where they were nitpicky, where they're asking for, lots of changes along the way. And, they say one thing, but that doesn't actually mean what they say, So definitely transferable.
Cool.
Yeah.
I did like an advertising program. And so we did a portion of graphic design in mine, but then we also did a portion of where we had to create a commercial.
Oh, yeah,
and we got to go out with the video camera and stuff, and that was it was my favorite part. Nice. I didn't realize at the time that it would translate to anything, but it's cool when something you do in school kind of opens up a door and you can use both skills. Right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Pretty cool. So let's talk about your team. So you are, fill me in on how many girls you have now, because you've run, how many events have you run, do you think? Do you keep track? Or
I'd say every year it ranges between, 40 to 50, 60, I don't know.
Between weddings and corporate?
Yeah. In terms of the team, there's myself and there's 3 girls that do planning and coordination, and then we have an intern, and we try to have an intern every year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then obviously there's assistants as well that we have a roster of, and I don't even know how many there are. There's probably at least 4 or 6 that are regular assistants throughout the year.
So are they assisting with the hopes to becoming in full-time planner, or are they more in a program that you're running with them coming in and just kind of?
The assistants would be assisting on the wedding day themselves, the event days, and the intern would be the one we're kind of training a little bit more in terms of giving her a lot more work in terms of, this is how you get quotes. Can you get us a few quotes for this? And then we'll actually give her some of the client work, what the clients are asking us, and showing her how to do it.
Cool.
It takes a little longer for her to learn it or to do it, but it gives her the experience. So we do that with the intern. And then, I think the last few years it was kind of a program-ish where my assistants were volunteers, and then where they were paid assistants, and then they were dependable, reliable, they were good. And then when the time came when I needed more help, we promoted from within. So it was just kind of a nice fit for them to be like, well, you already know how I work. You've worked with me at least for a year, shadowing, working alongside. It just was a good time for them to jump on board, to take a little bit more responsibility.
That's probably the best way to do it, right? Because then they get to know your system and your style and that kind of thing. Yeah. And then get to work with your girls as well. So there's 3 other girls. So how, because I'm curious, because the business is your name,
right? How
did you find starting to let go of the creative process and bringing the girls on? How did you find that process?
Yeah, so anyone who's starting a business, if you're starting to figure out what your name is, I don't know if I would recommend putting your name out there. If down the road I wanted to sell my business, I don't think anyone would want to buy it, as Rebecca Chan. But
there's Tiffany, there's Kate Spade. You never know.
It's true. Right? I'm trying to build it like a brand, right? Yep. Kind of that, like you're saying. But when I started getting too many inquiries, that more than I could fill myself, that's when I started thinking about promoting from within and giving some of that work away somehow. And it was a learning process of kind of trial and error. Not a lot of other planners had done that successfully, or not enough to be able to learn from them. And I was at a point where I was just giving the work away. It was like, oh, I'm not available. Try my friend's planner ABC. Yep. And I was like, why am I doing that? Why don't I just give it to one of my girls who I think might, hopefully, possibly be able to take it on? And so that was Veronique, who's been with me for the longest, I'd say probably about 5-6 years. So we had a conversation and we're like, what do you think? Do you think you're ready? It's a lot of responsibility. This is what it would entail, from the jump from being assistant to the wedding day itself. And she's like, you know what? I think I'm ready. I'm good. Oh, cool. Let's work it out together. So that was about 5 or 6 years ago, and we've just been tweaking it ever since. Yeah. And it was a good risk with the right person as well. And it worked well. So then I started bringing on a couple more girls when the need came a few years ago, to where, again, we had too many inquiries that were passing off, that we couldn't do it ourselves. So, let's do it. Let's try it again.
Because that's probably maybe the hardest part, is the first initial one where you're like, all right,
Agreed, yeah.
you can go out and do this. But it's the only way you can grow your business is if you're letting go, right? To a certain extent.
It doesn't scale otherwise because it's such a personal business. Like, I have to have one-on-one time with everybody. I have people who hire me want me there on the wedding day. Mm-hmm. So when I started expanding the team, that was part of the discussion. Like, how would we do the sales process? That would make sense. Would I do the sales process but selling someone else? Like, you know, and I realized, no, I don't think that would work. You know, this is a personal experience. She should be there from the start. And I think it's worked well. Yeah.
So if you're booked on a day, then you obviously offer up one of your girls, and then they are with the couple from there on.
Correct.
Cool.
From the beginning until the end.
Yeah. Makes sense, right? Because you guys are like planners, because you guys spend like a year to like a year and a half, than 2 years with people. Like, you must become family.
I know, totally,
almost, right? Like, it must feel like that.
Like, you'll get to know the parents, you get to know, you know, the sister or brother who comes on board, or the best friend. Yeah, it's a very personal experience.
I actually got to work with Veronique last year.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. That was super fun. She's great.
Yeah,
she's kick ass.
Nice.
Yeah, nailed it.
She learned from the best.
Speaking of the best, so talk to me about TV. You are a TV star, so I think it was like...
I make guest appearances.
You make guest appearances, but it might have been like, I don't know, maybe in the fall, and I was sitting out here, and you came up on the morning show, and I was like, hey, I know her. So, like, how did that roll out, and was that a goal for you? Were you like, I want to be on TV, I'm going to start going that way, or did it kind of fall into you?
A few years ago, I started getting a lot more requests. I think just in the media, weddings, again, were becoming bigger things, right? And more extravagant, bigger productions, more to talk about, more theatrics and entertaining kind of ideas. So probably like Breakfast Television or City Line, one of those folks, like, they reached out because they had an idea already that they wanted to get done. So it must have been either they found me, well, actually, you know what? One of them found me from their wedding videographer.
Oh, yeah?
Like James Frodema, who I know and I've worked with. And he, I think, recommended me because, you know, maybe I've done something similar. And that was one connection. And another one was probably similar as well. The other one was it was like on City Line, and one of their guest hosts followed me on Instagram.
Okay.
And thought I could be a good fit. Like,
cool.
Totally random, like referrals. And, you know, obviously I said yes, you know, that back in the day. And they're like, well, you did a great job. We loved what you did. Feel free to pitch us ideas. So that's what I've been doing.
So then you put together like a little pitch saying, I'm going to come on the show and talk about like trends for this.
Yeah, here's my summer wedding entertaining
So is it
ideas.
reoccurring? Like, are you on like twice a year kind of thing?
Yeah, usually 2 or 3 times I try to make it on. It's a lot of work in terms of those like few weeks leading up to it. They're always last minute as well. So it's not like they give you huge lead times. It's always like, hey, we have this, you know, segment in 2 weeks. Can you put something together? And it's got to be amazing.
Like the royal wedding might be an example or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like that was probably maybe 2 weeks, week and a half kind of turnaround. And then you got to be picture perfect, kind of camera ready, talking points all in. And,
at 4 a.m.
Yeah. And then you sleep in the afternoon.
Yeah. That's always a bonus.
Yeah. It was never a goal for me, I don't think. It was more of an opportunity that came up, and I said yes. Which I find actually has been a trend with kind of what I like to do and how this career developed. And it was the right time and the right fit for what I enjoyed doing. And I tried it out, and now I'm still doing it.
Nice.
Yeah. Back in the day, though, also talking about the name of the business, I was writing my business plan of, you know, where do I want to be in the next year? Where do I want to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10? And one of the goals I had set out for maybe 4 or 5 years down the road was to become more of a brand name. You know, it was kind of inevitable at that point that my name was my company name. What do I do with it, even though I'm expanding? And one of my thoughts was I should brand me. people want to know the face behind the name. And one thing led to another, and one of the things that supported that goal was to do more media appearances and to say yes to doing more of them.
Is that something you had written down?
I think so, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So like you had thought about it, and then it kind of turned out that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. I had a similar situation in 2008. Like, so after I had done the advertising and I had done the video commercial that we created, I was standing in the place I was living at the time, and I just said, I really want to own an editing studio. But I had no intentions of going into film. I wasn't going to go to film school. Like, none of that was happening.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just said it, and then here we are now, and I'm completely working in that field, which is
sitting
super
in
bizarre.
your film studio.
Like, it's so weird to me because I said it out loud, and then it kind of came back.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like, you figure out that's what you want to do, and that's what you love.
And then you
love
move
doing,
towards it.
and then it just happens.
Yeah.
It just kind of like navigates that way. It's super strange.
Yeah. And one of the other things I had written down was to increase my followers on social media as part of that goal to building the brand. And so I think it was like a 3 or 4 year goal. Maybe I can get over 10,000, like I feel like after 10,000, it starts going from 9,453 to 10.1, 10.2. Right. And it's just perception. Yep. The perceived value was there. So I was like, let's be consistent with social media and see where that goes. And then I think within that half a year, I got that goal reached.
Really?
I reached that goal. So
just working at it.
Yeah, and being consistent.
Yeah,
and being
it's
consistent
so important.
and posting every day and using the right hashtags and posting consistent visual content as well that people like. And I try to curate a consistent kind of story from start to finish. Like if I'm doing the story, I'm going to start the day by telling you where I am, what I'm doing, and then I'm going to give you sneak peeks throughout the day, and then I'm going to finish it off. And it's kind of like I'm storyboarding it in my head as well, and making sure that that story is consistent. And I watch it like 20 times, when I get home. I'm like, oh, I didn't tag the right person. I'm going to delete that and redo that.
Right.
Or like, or I might take my clips throughout the day and then post it later when I can make sure that that story is told well. Because I know people watch it, and I want to make sure that whoever is watching it it's worth their time, and it's not like just segments of thoughtless posting or whatever.
I think that's a big thing about the platform is like, it's one thing to just post images or stories, but to actually curate a proper story. So like, like you're saying, and during the day you like tell what you're doing. It's the same with video. Like I have such a story brain just because it's what I do. Right. Trying to make stories out of everything, like a wedding day, all that stuff. Yeah. But like, it works the same for your Instagram. So you want even your posts, you want to maybe, tell a story with each post kind of thing. For sure. Right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm always curious. Did you have like a pivotal moment where you were like, I want to do this? Like where you felt like super happy in planning, or like was there a moment that kind of stood out as you remembering it?
I knew I always wanted to do events, but I think it probably was in the first couple of years of wedding planning where you finish your day and you feel just
tired.
Well, beyond the exhaustion, you feel pretty fulfilled that you were a part of someone's extremely happy occasion, and all they could do was thank you because it went perfectly, and it was beyond their wildest dreams. Like as cliche as that sounds, and I still get that feeling. Every time after a wedding, I feel like I did a good job. I kicked ass, and they noticed it and appreciated it, and they valued the work, and on top of that, it was really beautiful, and it was a really, really fun party. Yeah. So like I am tired at the end of the day, but actually at the end of the night, I'm like super energized. Sometimes I'll go out at the end of the night too. Like
it's like a second win, right?
Yeah. Like this past wedding day, I was like 10 o'clock. I'm like 10:30. It was like I've been up for 13, 14 hours, and I still went out after because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to sleep. Yeah. I'm just going to be either on my stories, like looking through everything, making sure I was all good, or I'm just going to be kind of thinking about what I did, making sure everything went well, and going through the motions in my head. But at the end of the day, it energizes me totally.
It's almost like, because I always say to a bride and groom too, I'm like, imagine tomorrow when you wake up and you don't have to think about this anymore.
Right.
Like the event is done and you get to like, your brain now is going to be occupied by other things. But it would be the same for you, because it's just like you would clear your plate basically and then relive it, like go through some photos and stuff like that. But
yeah. I don't know if it was one pivotal moment, but you know, with weddings, it's always like this short-term project in a sense. Like, you know, maybe it's 1 year, a year and a half, sometimes it's less, but it's a short-term project where you have a beginning, you have an end. It's a definitive end, and at the end of it, you can look back and say, you know, you did a good job or you didn't do a good job. And so at the end of those projects, of the wedding projects, I enjoy it, you know, and I'm happy, and there's a sense of feeling rewarded for what you've done, and you've done a good job. And so it wasn't a pivotal moment, but you know, it's many moments along the way
to know that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you're doing a lot of like corporate stuff now. So I was lucky enough to be at one of your corporate events recently, which was fun, for Event Source.
Yeah.
Ricardo's, which was super
a lot of
cool.
fun.
Yeah. So is there a big difference in doing wedding and corporate? Like obviously there's different check marks for it, but is there?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like an emotional roller coaster when it's a wedding.
Right.
It's someone's personal money, so they are very invested in whether it is the right color of pink, you know, the right shade or the right glassware and also there's this pressure to make it this one perfect event, because there's so much pressure for it to be a certain way. So it's very emotionally driven. It's personal spending or family spending, and so they hold on a little tighter, you know, or they hum and haw a lot longer for their decision making. With corporate, it's different, where it's not their money. You know, they're spending someone else's money. As long as they reach their goals, they reach their target, you know, market or whatever it is that they're looking to achieve at the end of the day, at the end of the event, they're happy. So it's much less emotional. It's actually not emotional at all, which is actually really nice change of pace. And they're more risk taking. So they will be okay with, you know, this electric bedroom or you know, photo booth that, you know, I created a couple of weeks ago at another party. You know, they'll do a swing, you know, like at the Event Source party, and they will be okay with things like that. And in fact, they'll want things like that to stand out. So it's very different than on a wedding side. Like, I'll be hard pressed to sell, you know, I don't know, like a swing that costs thousands of dollars to produce to a client for this one day where they have to spend it themselves.
Very true. So have you worked on any of recent that they were pretty much like, it's creative freedom, go nuts?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had an event with One King West where they had this beautiful terrace on the 15th floor. And it's not a super popular or not very utilized kind of space. So it's like a hidden gem. It's beautiful. Like, has this wraparound terrace that overlooks downtown. And they wanted to promote it. So I said, why don't we do a summer party? We have to showcase the terrace open, and it opens up, the whole door opens up, and it's indoor outdoor space. So I invited, you know, 100 of, you know, Toronto's planners and industry people to kind of enjoy it. And we made it a white party, because it's summer, got something fresh, dress up. And in the bedroom next door that's connected to the suite, I created this electric bedroom, I called it the electric bedroom photo booth. And it was actually a suite. It's just like a super boring hotel room with absolutely nothing in it. And we put LED lights around it. We had this like white balloon kind of canopy around it that we had light shining that made it a rainbow kind of transition color throughout the night. And we had balloons scattered on the bed, and people could just jump in it and like throw around the balloons and have fun. And that was like the photo moment. Cool. Super fun. Probably the most fun, you know, I've had creating a photo op. And then we also had a bathroom in the back of the suite. Of course, it's a bedroom or hotel suite. So we created a little selfie moment with the tropical leaves that translated from the tropical floral that we had. and it was illustrated onto the mirror as a selfie moment as well. It was just really fun. Yeah, really fun. And the client was super happy with the turnout. They just said, Rebecca, I trust you, and I want you to create something really fun and really cool. And I think overnight, One King West became the cool kids in the town, you know, and top of mind with the industry.
So how do you find inspiration for that kind of stuff? Because that's a cool idea. Are you like...
I find inspiration everywhere, but lately it's been from the parties and the festivals that I've attended myself. I always think, like, don't trust a party planner who doesn't know how to party. Yeah. People who go home at 9:00. You need to be out there and experiencing what's trendy
That's
now,
true.
right? And what's cool and hip, and what people like to write about and take pictures of. And I just come back from this big festival in Vegas.
I love Vegas.
Yeah.
I was just there.
It's like all lights
so
everywhere,
fun.
right?
Yeah.
And so I go to a lot of these music festivals where it's, it might be overnight, it's nighttime, and lights, pyro, production, like that is what it's all about. And at these festivals, they have these moments where they have something that's lit up that has absolutely no function. It's not a backdrop to a stage. It's not a vendor or anything. It literally is there just for you to hang out in, to take a photo in, to take a break from the music. And they're really cool and really expensive, huge productions. Like the festival I went to in Vegas cost $40 million to produce. Wow. Like I would love to be a part of that process at some point down the road, but just the production value that they put in and the thought that they put into those kinds of events, those have been kind of fueling a lot of the ideas I've had lately, because the purpose of those events is to have a crap load of fun.
Right.
And it's always good vibes, and it's young, and whether or not you're 40, 50, 60, it's going to make you feel like you're 18 again.
Right. Like, I think now with social media, as a planning, probably you always are trying to not outdo, but you don't want to replicate because people can see, right? And so you're always trying to think creatively about how you can do it, which is pretty cool because it's constantly pushing you, planners, to be extra creative, I guess.
And the TV spots also help with that because it's a short turnaround, and they want the most interesting trends out there. They don't want to see what everyone else has been doing on the other segments or the other channels. And so when I do the TV segments, I find that's actually really creatively helpful too, because I'm looking to find what's the trendiest thing that will show well too on camera, which is also very important for brides. Like some things are really cool, but no one really cares, you want really cool things that translate well onto camera. And, I think the TV spots help with that. Attending events help with that. And just experiencing different kind of industries. Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Is like, if you're not out experiencing it, then how can you create experiences for other people? Right. Because whether or not you're having fun, kind of thing. In Vegas.
I mean, like I want to make events and produce events and weddings that I want to attend. And if I finish the wedding day being like, damn, I wish I was a guest at that wedding, I know I've done a good job because I'm impressing myself. And the last couple weddings this month, like I finished that night thinking, these guests had a really good time. Nice. And I really wish I would have been there as a guest to experience it. And that's when I know that was a good day.
That's funny because I measure videos based on whether or not I get goosebumps, and that's how I know the film's ready. And you are based on whether or not you feel like you should have been a guest there. Everyone kind of has their like moment of like, if I feel this way, then I know it's ready, or like my job's done.
It's like a couple of weeks ago I had this wedding with this wild couple. Love them to death because they were super creative and very risk-taking. They didn't want a blush and gold wedding at a banquet hall. or at a hotel, they wanted something wildly different than anything their friends had seen before. So they found the Museum of Contemporary Arts in Toronto. They don't usually take weddings or events because they typically have exhibitions on their exhibition floor, but they have these like few months in the summer where they don't have an exhibit, so they were selling it. And we booked it as being their first wedding. So it's their first wedding ever, God. So I was just like, this is gonna be really good, really bad. And we're like, let's break some rules, like let's push them a little bit.
Right.
And so they booked this space, and it is like a concrete industrial space with these like big, huge columns, all concrete. And like really very industrial feel. I don't know if there's any other venue I can compare it to in the city. It's almost like an empty concrete warehouse almost, and with a couple windows. And we created this dark, moody, kind of jungle in a museum feel with cool foliage growing on the columns. Mulch on the ground, and we had fog that was crawling through the floor as the bride was walking in. We had this 12-foot cage that was the centerpiece of the room, like 12 foot by 12 foot. It was like massive. And
is there a lion in it?
Originally the client was like, can you have live animals, Rebecca? And butterflies. I want butterflies. Like, how cool it'd be if a fucking butterfly landed on your arm, like when you're walking into my wedding.
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna catch the butterflies after? Like, the butterfly's not gonna land on you. They're gonna be on the wall, like bugs.
Right.
And then I'm gonna have to catch them. Like, they're gonna be in their ventilation system. Like, I'm pretty sure the museum's not gonna be for this. So got them the next best thing. We got burlesque dancers in like leopard print, like cat ears and stuff, sparkly, and they were in the cage. So we had 3 of them. Guests come in. It was like a food station cocktail reception. So guests came in, and they're greeted by 3 very provocative animal print wearing burlesque dancers inside the cage. And that was a lot of fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, and they like to party as well. And so like at nighttime when we had their first dance, they had the confetti, they had LED light fingertip things that you can put on your, and then we pass those out and everyone's wearing them. Then we had a little glow station where you can have your glow sticks and create glow stick glasses, and it was a lot of fun.
I like the LED, like the gloves, because it would be like different. Because sparklers
kinda
run
like lighters.
out.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so if they put them on, then they're doing this, and you're getting that look.
Yeah,
that's fun.
We weren't able to use sparklers in that space because it was a museum.
Yeah.
And
were they having both their ceremony and reception in that space?
Yeah, we had the ceremony in front of the cage with just their family.
With the girls in it?
No, the girls were just later. Yeah, it was just a ceremony with 60, family members, and then we invited the guests, an hour and a half later.
Cool. That must have felt like a bit more corporate almost, because you had a little bit of like creative.
Yeah, it's different. It's
like
very different.
A warehouse like that is usually like a blank canvas, I'm assuming.
Totally,
right?
totally.
Like I feel like Brickworks is like that too, because it's just kind of like this open floor with some, and it's like, okay, go to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
That's
fun.
fun.
And it was a lot of fun to put together, and the couple was a lot of fun to work with as well. So they were happy. They wanted something. Just this year we had Crazy Rich Asians, and just that kind of feel, whereas theatrical and like the scale was huge, and it was just something out of this world where you wouldn't ever expect. You're walking into a church and the water comes in, and you're cool. The bride walks in stepping into the water, so that's what happens in the movie. And I mean, we didn't do that exactly, but we gave that kind of sense, that kind of drama. Exactly.
So what are some 2019 trends? Are there any? Or maybe a better question is like, what trend would you like to see happen? Do you have one that you're like, I wish somebody would do this? Or is a tiger in a cage close to it?
Yeah, I feel like I've done a lot of the things I've really wanted to do recently. Maybe not just at weddings, but at the corporate events. I think it would just be really nice to have couples that take a little bit more risk.
Right.
And not only take the risk, but trust you in the process to make it happen, to make something wild happen. Not just like to make it look beautiful, which will happen, but to do something, beyond their imagination. And it's tough when it's their money to do it, right?
For sure.
It's almost like sometimes I'm like, oh, I really would love to do this. I'll chip in for it because I'd really love for it to happen, Like, I think overall it's just that sense of I would love to do more kind of unique experiences for the couples.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do you think that people are going to move towards more experiential things happening because of now social media? And the photos you can take with that, and then your guests remember it. Like, do you think maybe they want to keep like the blush tones and corals, but then they're going to do something kind of cool, to like elevate it a little bit? Do you think?
A lot of couples are sort of blending it like that. Like the last wedding I had this past weekend, she saw the One King West party where we had the calligraphy on the mirror. And she's like, I would really like to do that at my wedding. Is that possible? And we found her a solution that was not super expensive, but still gave her that that sort of feel. Like in the women's washroom at the Four Seasons, we had her orchids, vinyled on the mirror. Something super small, not expensive. It was a couple $100s, and we had a calligrapher draw that as well, so that it was matching with her dance floor, and it was a nice selfie moment.
Yeah. Which I think is key.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's starting to kind of, I find with brides, they have to see it like 20 times. They have to see that someone else has done it successfully already, that then they can imagine it could be possible at their wedding. And that's worth paying for.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time sometimes, and so I guess, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
What's the color in your opinion this year? Is there one that seems to be popular?
I feel like a lot of couples are going green this year.
Like a
almost like
woodsy
tropical,
green? Yeah.
Tropicals almost, like kind of like your leaves, your leaf back there.
Green thing you got going on?
Yeah. Yes. Actually,
it's very jungly in here. I'm one with jungle.
But like the classic blush white, like the soft tones are never going to go out of style. They always look good in photos, and it's when you try to do something different that then they start, oh, is that okay? Have I seen that on Pinterest? Does it look good in photos? Right. Yeah.
I guess that's the biggest barrier is like you want to make sure that it's going to be what you want down the road.
Yeah, and it has to be timeless, right? It's just the one time you're doing that wedding. Right. If they're going to do an anniversary party once a year, let's change it up. Let's do it different every time, right? Sure. But if it's that one wedding, then it's got to be safe. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. And it's got to be beautiful.
Yep. Very true. Do you have anniversary parties that you do? Like, do you find people, is that a thing yet? I know
not yet.
Showers
bridal showers are kind of big, and, sometimes kids' birthdays, but not so much anniversary parties.
I guess it's like 10 years usually.
Right.
So we got time. Eventually in 10 years we'll probably be running to all these anniversary parties or something.
I hope so. Yeah, we'll see.
And they'll be in like hot air balloons.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Okay, well, last question for you. And I like to ask this just because I'm curious of what people... Actually, 2 questions for you. But number 1, what advice do you give to anyone who's starting? What's kind of like because you were there... And now there's social media. So you started in a different time. Well, there was social media then, but not to the extent now that we use it for business. But do you have advice that you would give?
There's a lot of advice, but because there's just so many things to learn. But probably to just jump right in to get experience somehow. I got that from my work, but also through friends' weddings. If you have friends that are getting married, help them out. Try it out. See if you can sell, your portfolio building for free to get experience, or volunteer. Like I had a girl this past weekend email me on Friday night asking if I had any positions. And I was like, I know it's a short notice, but I could use another assistant tomorrow at 10 a.m. Do you want to come? And she said, yes, I'll come.
Nice.
And she was excellent. And she was great. And I said, well, I'll see you next time then, because I liked working with you. And it's not always the case that it's a good fit. But if you're available and you offer help and you offer something of value, obviously, that could be the start of something, right? And that's really how Veronique started with me. A lot of my girls, actually, they're interns, a lot of them. And started somewhere.
I'm finding that Instagram now is how a lot of people are reaching out.
Right.
So they're sending like a DM that says, like, hey, do you need somebody? And I find it interesting because I've actually worked with some people from there and it's worked out and it's been a good relationship. But I find those people are like, they might see the portfolio online or like on Instagram and then feel like, oh, this might be a good fit. And then they reach out, which is kind of cool. That it's not just people online, but if they see you and think it might work, they reach out, which is kind of cool.
So at least you know what you're getting yourself into. It's like you've seen what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of hustle there because they're writing, right?
Right.
You know, they're at least extending a message, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah. I get messages like that all the time.
Oh, you do? Okay.
But I don't always have opportunity.
Right.
So I think if it's the right time and the right place and the right opportunity and they say yes, great. But it's not all the time. So if you're able to get volunteer work and you're able to work under somebody and learn, I think that's super valuable. And you might not get paid, but that is the payment, your experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's like for long term.
Exactly.
Short term, you may not get paid, but long term, you're learning so much from professionals.
Yeah, and a foot in the door or the right connection is so valuable in the wedding and the event industry. You can't buy that.
Okay, so last question.
Yes.
Where do we see Rebecca Chan in 5 or 10 years?
Hopefully in Italy, like enjoying life and not doing any work in Toronto.
On the beach?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Would you love to go to another country and work?
I feel like it's always been in the back of my mind. Like when I read about, like I listen to Tim Ferriss. You know, and I read the 4-Hour Work Week and talks about kind of making sure that your work is repeatable and, you know, is expandable and works on its own, you know, and so that you can go do other things, whether that's building other businesses or leisure. It's always been in the back of my mind because it resonates with me. And down the road, I would love to. I mean, in 5 or 10 years, I'll be like, what, mid-40s? Just crazy. And it would be great if, you know, I don't know, whatever business I have here has expanded enough that I'm able to do more of what I love. That's not work. Or maybe it is work. I don't know. So we'll see. I'm not sure. But I love building businesses and kind of the entrepreneurial aspect of the work on top of just creating the events themselves. So it might translate to another field down the road, and that's okay. But I'm not sure what that is.
Kind of like the process, just kind of going through the process and figuring out what you're going to do. Well, maybe in 10 years we'll Skype and you'll be in Italy and we'll be here in the studio. Yeah. We'll say, hey, it's 10 years. We're checking in.
Where are you?
Where are you?
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming in. I appreciate you sharing some of your insights, and we would love to have you back because this isn't going away. So if you ever want to come in for another episode, let's do it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, we high-five it out. Thank you.